Hey, Travis Yost talked about this because it's being discussed on TSN by one of the top NHL analysts in this environment in the media. It gives us a right to have a conversation about it. I don't want to see anybody in the comments, "Oh, Lego, you're only doing this for views." I'm doing this because this is a big deal. It's a big idea right here, and I think it can prompt some very big discussion out there in regards to a Toronto Maple Leafs Buffalo Sabres potential trade. What is up, viewer at the Washington Villars back here? Let's go over onto tsn.ca and take a look at Travis Yost's recent piece proposing a blockbuster trade that would help the Leafs and the Sabres. Now, there's a lot of foreplay in this article right here. A lot of, setting up at the beginning to get to the main point and the main idea that Yost is proposing over here. Talking about the salary cap and what the league is like and a whole bunch of NHL front offices trying to improve their rosters, but doing so under the auspice of a flat cap. It takes a while to actually get to the Toronto Maple Leafs and talking about why they're in this position. The Maple Leafs are another big market team that's been dealt a difficult blow through the slowed revenues and the associated flat cap. They have about $9 million in cap space, but the roster is still incomplete. The goaltending position behind Jack Campbell is bare and will wipe away some of that room. It's a big issue for a Maple Leafs organization that's under increased scrutiny due to repeated postseason failures. To that end, GM Kyle Dubas' recent comments were impossible to ignore. He believes in the core of this roster, but the approaching season surely has a last dance feel to it. Oh boy. The last dance, eh? Are we really gonna see these guys get broken up? I don't know. We'll see, I guess. Either way, Yost talks about the Maple Leafs and their struggles, goes over a few of the players on the team, and then he says this. Down the Queen Elizabeth Way, the Buffalo Sabres are heading towards another rebuild. The Sabres recently moved forward Sam Reinhart to Florida and have been persistent about trading Jack Eichel, though the process there has stagnated. You also have to note the Sabres have $37 million in cap space, yada yada yada. Hear me out for a moment, he says. The Sabres have a pressing need for young talent and hold endless cap space. Space that is only going to increase if an Eichel trade ever materializes or whatever ends up happening with high-priced winger Jeff Skinner and his contract. Enter Mitch Marner. A game-breaking 24-year-old offensive talent coming off a 67-point season in just 55 games played. Marner is signed through 2024-25, and he doesn't have any trade restrictions or movement clauses until 2023, both of which are enticing for a team like Buffalo. Even on an expensive deal, few teams have the assets to trade for a player like Marner. That's where Sabres defenseman Rasmus Dahlin comes into play. The former first overall pick has shown signs of brilliance in Buffalo, but it's been rather inconsistent, and the 2021 season was particularly ugly. Offensive playmaking and distributing ability is there in spades, so too, unfortunately, was shoddy off the puck play. So our idea that Yost brings up is Mitch Marner for Rasmus Dahlin, a trade that potentially might help out both these organizations. Would it work? Do the values align? Is this something that you would see making sense? Let's talk about it here today, but before we go over that, let's finish up what Yost has to say about the entire situation. He goes over Dahlin and how he hasn't really been great. There still is an extension process that he has to go through as well later on, and you have the framework of a trade expanding when it comes to Marner and Dahlin. There are a whole bunch of other layers here added in the article, but I just wanted to focus on that main idea in itself. Dahlin for Marner. Would you do it? Would you not? Does it make sense? And why wouldn't it? Let's talk about how Mitch Marner could do playing on a Buffalo Sabres team that might not even have Jack Eichel this season. Sure, Marner going over to Buffalo makes sense cap-wise because Marner is making a boatload of money, and quite frankly, he's kind of overpaid for what he does in the playoffs. Look, regular season Marner, top 5-point guy in the league or whatever it is, 100-point guy in his prime, probably. But what this guy does in the playoffs, man, you want to get players to help you win the Stanley Cup. Marner completely disappears in the playoffs, aside from maybe one game a series. But The thing with the Sabres is that they don't really need to make the playoffs right now. They're not going in there. They're not going to make it. They're not going to win a round. Sure, they're going to go out there, just be bad. They're going to rebuild, whatever. They're going to have young talent. Going to wait for Middlestad and Owen Power and all these other guys, Dylan Cousins, to really develop into what they could be in their primes. Sure, Mitch Marner was drafted in 2015, as was Eichel, so they're in the same age range, which is a little bit older than all the other guys on the team. But you still have to remember the guys that used to be even older, that were supposed to be foundational rebuild pieces like Ristolainen, Reinhart. These guys were all traded away already. So, is it the guys from 2015, like Eichel and maybe like a Marner, that would man the ship in Buffalo? If you want to say yes, hey, be my guest. Marner going over there would work financially, and it would work in terms of, I think, the role, you know? Sure, Marner would go from Toronto to Buffalo, and I don't know how anybody would feel if they got traded to Buffalo, but either way, it does kind of work. As for Rasmus Dahlin on the Leafs, now this is the one that is kind of interesting here. Rasmus Dahlin was the first overall pick in 2018. He was supposed to be a franchise puck-moving defenseman who can just rush up with it, headman it himself, dangle by a few guys, and set up a nice little play in front for a goal. When he wasn't on the puck, he was fantastic defensively, really engaged, and really split-second aware of everything that was going on. He was so good. It's the reason why he was the first 16-year-old to play in the SHL, or something like that. I don't know if that's right. He was the first guy to play in the SHL, born in the 2000s, I believe it was. That's what the stat was. He's a great player, but he had a bad year this year. He went out there, produced a lot less than we had been used to seeing him perform, and we all kind of known, okay, I mean, the Sabres all kind of suck. Everybody's doing really poorly under this new coach, and yada, yada, yada. Taylor Hall, Eichel's doing okay, but, I mean, he got injured, and now he's out. You only really had Sam Reinhart, who really exceeded in terms of Buffalo Sabres player standards this year. Dahlin improved a lot after the coach was fired and they got the new guy in, and they allowed him to use his own skills and his own perception of the game to his advantage. If you have Rasmus Dahlin coming over to Toronto, though, I'm going to be honest, I think he'll probably play a lot better. Like, we know how Toronto likes to play with puck-rushing, offensively capable defensemen. We saw it in Morgan Rielly this entire time. You give Rasmus Dahlin that kind of right. You say, okay, all this stuff that Rielly can do, we want you to do this too, Dahlin, because we know you can do it. You're giving him the keys to the yacht that he is so masterfully known how to drive ever since he was a teenager. He is a good hockey player, but he's 21 years old, he's coming off a bad year, and for the most part, Rasmus Dahlin to defenders in the NHL is not what Mitch Marner is to forwards in the NHL. Mitch Marner on paper is a top 5 point producer in this league. He is a 90-plus potential 100-point player on a good year. The magnitude of that kind of player is huge. It's in like the top 3% of forwards in the league. Rasmus Dahlin, while great and while young and while projected to being better, is not in the top 3 percentiles of NHL defenders yet. I get it, he's going to get there soon, but he's not there yet, because Rasmus Dahlin still has more to prove at the NHL level. Mitch Marner already proved a lot when he scored 94 points in 2018. I get it, Dahlin had back-to-back 40-point seasons at 18 and 19 years old, but he fell off this year, and you can't go out there and trade away a guy like Mitch Marner in a trade like that 1-for-1. Now, if there are other pieces in it, okay, I don't care. Other stuff going in there to try to balance out the scales. You can try to convince me depending on what those other things are. But just the way things go about it right now, Dahlin for Marner, I don't think the values align here. Sure, Dahlin at his best could be a top 2, top 3 percentile defenseman. He'll probably be in the top 0.5%. But is he that yet? No. Is Marner technically supposed to be on paper already one of those for the forward side of things? Yeah. It's why he's making a lot of money, too. So, talk to me in the comments what you think about this entire idea over here. Rasmus Dahlin for Mitch Marner. What do you think? For my concluding thoughts over here, sure, The fits would work if you have the players on the teams. I think Marner taking a leadership role, I don't really know how good that is, to be honest, but like having Marner just anywhere, playing with some good players that want to go out there and want to score goals, I think it works out pretty well. Rasmus Dahlin playing with a puck-rushing system in Toronto, hey, I think that would really suit his own play style well too. But the value for a trade in this scenario does not align, in my opinion. Let me know in the comments what you think. I hope you enjoyed this Visage Rolls 99. And bye.